I'm just having a quick snack, so I'm just going to be muted.
Snacks are good.
Snacks are great.
Everything's great. I just had a popsicle, so I'm pretty happy with that.
I realize this is not a good time to have a snack. Okay.
Oh no, it's a great time. It's just me.
Who else are we waiting for? Hi, Kendall.
I think it looked to me like Quentin was super busy, but I don't know if he's taking a break for the stand-up or not.
I believe he has another engagement right now, a family themed engagement
Afternoon.
that he's
Okay.
working with.
All right. Does everybody know about these stand-ups? Like all the people?
They do know about them, but I think that it's not always.
I mean, do they know that they are for everyone?
Oh no, I try and tell the new volunteers that it is nice, that they can drop by, but I think that they maybe feel that it's more for like the admin people. But I do always say that this is an option if they're feeling stuck about anything, they can come here.
Yeah, we should probably re-up that. We want to change the culture of this. We don't want it to just be the clicky place. Kindle, glad to see you here.
You're changing us.
All right. Well, that being said, why don't you guys kick us off?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
No, yeah. I think, on the 209A front, without Quentin being here, it's a little hard to know where things stand.
Well, so he does understand his role, the role that will fall to him.
That will fall to him.
So that's the ultimate stitching of the form group together.
Yes, and he seemed optimistic about that, assuming that the individual pages are near completion.
I think so. We actually had a call a little bit earlier, just about the plain language stuff, because we realized we didn't actually have a process that was set up for that. And one of the things that came up was where we are at with the 209A. So maybe we can just jump into that and just rehash what was said. I think the main forms that are necessary for the package, excluding, say, the plaintiff's motion to modify and the defendant's motion to modify, the main ones are almost at completion. Maybe Kate, do you want to speak to that
as far as language? I mean, as far as logic.
Sorry,
as far as code, yeah. I think so. Child support affidavit, plaintiff confidential info, defendant confidential info, complaint page 1. I think the preliminary code is done. Complaint page 2, Michelle is finishing up the code on. Affidavit of care, I think that's Quentin. I think almost done. He was just finalizing some things on that. 209A affidavit, we were not 100% sure about, but we think is maybe done or near done.
Yeah, I mean, it actually looks good today. I looked at it. Michelle, I think maybe we should go over how exactly merging those into master should go.
Okay.
And then there's the impoundment, which I think probably doesn't, if that goes out pretty quick after those forms, I don't know if that needs to go out with the rest. I don't know.
Okay.
And the Kim, the SME, had done the paired programming on that. She, through reading the statute, there's actually some fairly significant inconsistencies between the statute and the forms. So she was giving a little bit of extra thought to what kind of warning language to put in. So that one might be a little bit behind, but Kim is thinking about how to deal with that. And she's being communicative and dealing with that. But that was a good close reading of the statute. She did define that.
Yeah, it's freaking amazing.
So we're up to scratch on the language almost. The next step is stitching the forms together. Am I missing a huge bunch of steps here?
I think the language is the next step. Getting the language up to scratch.
Okay. So the logic is almost there. Though I would love a pair program or something. I think Quentin has is yes, this is how blah 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 works, and that's great, but think the rest of us, could use a second eye. And then I think we're saying that the language is sorry, I got distracted with my sentence. I'm sorry. Today is that kind of day. Please continue.
The language is the next step.
Yeah.
So in terms of language, we've got that process kind of sorted out now. It's just a draft. I mean, it's obviously the first time we're running through this process as well. So if there's changes or tweaks, then that's something we can incorporate, work on. And we've added some more columns as well on the Trello board for that. So we'll move the cards through there because it was kind of like the cards were just getting bunched up in the very unclear column. They were bottlenecking there. Matt, do you want to say something?
Oh, I'm stretching, but yes. But no.
You don't. Okay, you don't want to say something. Okay. Yeah, so we've added some more columns, and then I'm going to just be working on the policy for that in conjunction with the other project managers. But I think that once the language is done, then the next step is
stitching. I think it is stitching.
And that's going to fall to Quentin, and he's happy with that, David?
Largely, yes. And okay. Kate said she was going to help.
Can that happen? I don't know the technical stuff. That can't happen in parallel with the language, right? Like we really need the language pretty solid before
get the language pretty solid. Yeah.
Okay.
Because stuff happens with the language.
Right. And then we may also, as you're doing it now, since they're all individual forms, there will be one set of language. And then it may be that when you're stitching together, some of that language will have to tweak. So you want to have that base done and then move from there.
Yeah, that's the basic.
So you're going to basically do another language review once it's stitched together to make sure it's smooth.
Yeah, but I think something very cursory that's just like, let's move this paragraph over here, or this is redundant text.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that many major changes at that stage, because ultimately
the main thing is sorry.
You go.
I was going to say the only thing that should change is any references to the context of the either separate forms or the group forms.
No, I agree with that. I'm just trying to get a timeline out, a rough timeline on, do we think this is going to be finished this week?
So for SME language, we asked for that by 12:30 tomorrow. So then the plain language could happen. I don't know how long that takes.
Well, I'm available to work on the plain language as well.
That's right.
So I think
that's another person.
I think in terms of plain language, we talked before, Matt, you mentioned having a style guide.
David mentioned that as well.
Yeah. So I think that's important because things like, are we going to say children, or are we going to say kids? Are we going to use the imperative mood, or are we going to do something, because what you do is you have a completely different tone from one form to another. And I also think that we're talking about, as people, unless you're doing one standalone form, particularly in the 209A, I think you don't really want to refer to the form that you're on, because you're not actually on one form. You're bouncing around answering questions that go different places. So I think it would be helpful to have and also, are we going to be a we? I think direct address is good. So the user is you, but who is who? Yeah.
Good point. I think that this needs to definitely happen in a way that doesn't implicate the stitching. As long as this can happen in parallel with whatever Quentin has to do, then
we can write our style guide informed by what we do with this, and then we can also go back and change. I think that's good. There is, and I've been saying now we wanted to launch for the end of this week for the past 3 weeks now, and I think now we're really at the week where the chief would really like to see. Now, of course, right now we've got good cover because the courts haven't signed their MOU yet, so we can't launch. But I do think that hopefully that will change this week, which then means it really will be incumbent upon us to actually have something.
Sure. So anyway, my idea is not to get not that the style guide has to be done and dusted before the stitches together, but I think you need to figure out who's going to make these decisions, and I think the plain languaging needs to be somewhat of a team effort to begin with. So because we're going to have the same issue as we had dividing the forms up between people, unless, because I'll do one, somebody else will do something else, somebody else, and there'll be a completely different tone. Whereas if you have your plain language editing team, everybody knows who's on the team, and you have some certain sort of, let's make these decisions now. Some basic decisions. And then also language changes all the time. People can review each other and have a discussion about how to do that. I think that would be very effective.
I think
Caroline,
your idea for a
like
plain language team is good.
I heard David Maeve, what did you say?
The idea for a plain language team is a very good one.
Yeah.
And I think that David's idea of we use how we deal with this package of forms to inform how we do the style guide. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy to volunteer to be on that team, and I can also reach out and see if anyone else has got experience with plain language that would be joining in that capacity.
I think Emily said she'd be interested. I just don't know who the people are who signed up thinking.
You, right, Caroline?
Oh yeah, that's what I do for a living.
So I think that sounds good, because Emily has background, you have background, Maeve can be in there as the project manager.
And the style guide in the back of my mind, thinking this is how we're going to go forward on this. But I do think that it's good, because otherwise we're going to have inconsistent tone. There's going to be inconsistencies across it, and that's not going to be good. It's going to just take more and more review. So I'll talk to you, Caroline, and I'll talk to Emily as well. I'll make a group for us three and see if maybe how many more people how many people is too many? I don't want to be.
I mean, that sounds like a good size of people, like in terms this. But it seems unwieldy if you get too many more people.
And can we convert the assembly line 209 channel to this purpose we don't make a new channel, because I keep bugging Nicole about making new channels.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a group, a DM for now, just to let Emily know about this, and then
maybe invite Lance. Y'all keep forgetting Lance. I don't know why. He's he's there, I think.
Yeah. So the thing is, as you talk, I saw, Kate, you posted that Slack about the stages of the plain language. It makes sense that 209A Slack channel evolves into plain, because basically the channel reflects the whole package, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So 209A becomes plain, it's moving into the plain language phase, or the stitch up phase. So it's almost like it's like the card in a way.
Right, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So my concern with having kind of the plain language team, I still think we need to have individuals responsible for individual forms. I don't. Each form can't be done by committee. It's not going to happen.
I don't think that would happen.
I think the committee is just to codify the guidelines for the style guide. So think
it'll
right
still
now,
be assigned.
Yeah, I think right now everything works as we planned, except now there's this team that's keeping in the back of their head, oh, the decisions we're making here, oh, we use this type of voice, we use this sort of address, and they're then thinking about that, and because they're participating in the right now in the 209 team, so they're actively participating, but then they're also saying, okay, we're going to make this the standard, or at least the working standard going forward, and then they'll memorialize that in a style guide, such that by the time we get to the next forms, there's a style guide that people can use based upon the work from this one. That
was my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, we don't want to create another decision level of bureaucracy.
No. Yeah. So, do you guys already have a sense of, do you want the questions to be we and you, or is that something you want the team? Are there certain
things? I think that might be a good thing to discuss in and not the stand-up. Like that would be a good discussion for that DM channel, because
I agree.
Okay, so I think we should do is you're passing that on to the team rather than you haven't already decided that. That was my question. Is there already okay?
No, I don't think there's been any discussions about that sort of thing.
Because some of that's part of your branding,
Sure.
But I wouldn't say that we're the final decision makers on that. I think what we do is we come up with these things, we present it, and we say, this is what we've thought of, we've applied our minds, and then we just take out some time for everybody else, basically.
And it gives something concrete for people to respond to.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah,
but
so I'm happy.
Should not stop anyone from doing what they're doing.
Yeah, we do not want any holds on the 209A. My idea is that the call for SME language is done by 12:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, I put that so that way it could be discussed at the stand-up if there was anything that came out of that.
Yeah, and so what I'll do is with Caroline and Emily, I will in the background be working on that. Because I'm not obviously an SME, I have a lot more time to dedicate to that. And then by the time that the SME language is done, then we can move straight into the plain language and just try and keep that ball rolling. Because I'm very cognizant of the fact that time is ticking by.
Yeah, and Emily has right now the child support affidavit, plaintiff and defendant forms, because I know the SMEs who worked on those didn't have anything else to add.
Okay.
So she has so she might be able to start getting
if we can move them into the Trello columns that we've created, I think that
I think I did.
Useful. Oh, awesome. When did I look at that? That must have been longer ago. Okay, very cool. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
This is awesome.
You're muted, Kate. Yeah, we can't hear you. Yeah. No, we still can't hear you. Okay. No.
All right. Yeah. Sorry, I was like holding the space bar and then I clicked away. Complaint page 1 and impoundment are in the like add legal language. I didn't move 209A affidavit, complaint page 2 or affidavit of care because I know those are still having some coding work.
That's great. Yeah.
So if those are done with the coding and someone knows that,
we will let you know.
Move it over.
We will let you know.
Just because otherwise it looked like everything was clogged and they weren't making any progress.
Right.
But meanwhile, there was progress being made, but there wasn't columns to.
Well, it was also unclear what their next steps were because it was just like, are these sitting here? Like, yeah. I think that was for me a big part of it. It was like, where are these right now? Do they need code review? I don't know.
The other thing that I'm thinking about is the instructions, the next step instructions. Because it's a form group. Pardon?
Yeah, those could definitely start, I think.
So we could those can be done, you know, we've done some of the housing ones. I think Charlotte started working on that, but she did reach out to me and said that she was a bit confused about certain things. Because it's more like a package of forms, we won't have next steps for each form. It'll be more of a next steps for the process as a whole. But my understanding of the next steps is like you wait, this is submitted to the court, you can follow up with the court. What am I missing from next steps that should be included?
Doesn't that kind of depend on the MOU? Like how is the court dealing with these?
So the court is basically, they're saying that they're going to just receive them, they'll print them out and they'll treat them like normal, and they should get in contact with you within 1 business day.
But on a 209A, it needs to be immediate.
Oh, on the 209, I'm sorry. That's the general MOU language. On the 209A, it should be immediate.
So is it like, but it's got to be like an hour or two, right, till they notice? Have we helped them set up notifications for their emails?
Yes.
Well, I mean, right, because that's a concern they have possibly that.
There's a concern they have. We have offered that if they would like to give us everyone's personal cell phone numbers, we will text them when the email arrives.
Right, but we could also help them set up notifications depending on what email system they're using.
Michelle, I think this is an offline conversation.
Yeah, this is an offline conversation.
All right.
There are 100. There are over 100 different emails at which people get it. Right now, we're waiting to just make sure everyone is informed of this.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a different conversation.
I'm just thinking that we could also, for the 209A emails, when the court gets them, we could have in the subject urgent, capitalized. So that
it will definitely have the 209A site in it, so the subject. And so my expectation is that people will filter upon the form types and the sender being us. That way, whenever stuff comes in from us on 209A, that someone will be on top of it. But at some point we have to rely on them to behave in the way they say they will behave.
Well, I mean, we're going to start. I mean, first of all, we're going to have it up there so that they're going to review it before it goes live, right? Then the next step is you can have DV advocates using them because you're not going to make. I mean, like you're saying, that maybe. And so I mean, what Laura was saying on Friday is that the courts are still saying, if you file anything through email, call us. So it might be worth putting that into the instructions, but there's not a
That
lot
should
to go.
not,
You
yeah.
want to do, yeah.
Well, that's because that is not all the courts have been informed yet of this process.
Right.
So I'm not, we want to put in the instructions that they tell us to put in at the court level with the MOU.
Yeah, okay, so that would really be, but that's, I mean, there aren't any other instructions really, are
No.
there?
That's what I'm thinking.
Not
Am I
really.
missing anything big?
Right. It's not
Basically,
like
what should be happening is the court should be following up with them.
Right, right.
But
And
they
then
do need a
the option of
recourse.
if they don't follow
Yeah.
up with you, this is what you do. This is who you contact, because otherwise, if people can see that it's connected to Suffolk Lit, or you know what I mean, they're going to be. You guys are going to be getting a lot of calls.
It should say that you contact the helpline or the court individually.
But don't you think in a way that's the court? I mean, you're talking to the court. You're getting your instructions from the court. They're the court instructions. The court's going to tell you what to put in the instructions. So it's almost like the court writes the instructions and we just review it for readability.
You're right.
I think that's
right.
Because otherwise there isn't anything to, I mean, down the line, maybe when people are not filing, they're just creating the forms and emailing them to advocates and saving them. But I think that from the beginning, I always wondered, what are you going to put on these instructions if they're, those are
right now the
options.
instructions is just wait for the court, and if you don't hear from them, make a noise.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I think
so
it'd be also good to tell people at the beginning that is what will happen, because if
I believe that is part of the current introductory splash.
it's part of that's part the Spanish or all of it. Sorry, what did you say?
Splash.
okay, just in Spanish.
The Spanish. Okay, it's people speaking Spanish on that. All right. Okay, cool. Because it'd be good to, I think, in those kind of dangerous situations.
Yeah. Well, there's generic language about the contact with the forms that goes on everyone's splash, and then we can add specific to the 209A if they want to. But we'll leave it to the court to figure out what that is. But yes, the ordering, I agree with the ordering, and I think right now it is up at the front.
Okay, is there anything else urgent on this 209A? I mean, as we've the hope is that this gets done by the end of the week, because the court's going to have to look at it, and that's going to take a few days, right? So, as Matt reminded us today, every day that this is not up, people are not having access to the 209A.
And and the stuff the court has put up is not really, the problem right now is that a lot of the court departments think everything is fine, because there's no way for people to tell them that things are not fine. But for all the people who are trying to access them, no one thinks it's fine. So,
Yeah.
So that's just, and the overarching thing is that we need to try and get something that's acceptable as quickly as possible. And that's been the dream the whole time.
As quickly as possible to do it safely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
The quickest, safest product that we can put out there. And that just needs to inform all of our decisions, especially this week.
And I think we're at safe. Safe.
If we make sure of I think there are language and logic things that we have to make sure of, or they won't be safe. That's what I mean.
But we know what they are, right? So it's just implementing, correct? That's what Kate's gone through with.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Kate, you've done the thing where you have the form and then you run the hard copy form and then you run through the interview.
I did that a little bit on complaint page 1.
Can I get volunteers to do, when we have interviews that they can run through, can I get volunteers ready in the wings and explain the process so that when we have interviews that they can run through, that this is something that they could do?
Is that...
They need to check if the things get marked when they should be marked.
That's what I'm talking about. Sorry.
And that they don't get marked when they should not be marked. People don't think of that second part.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing, Maeve. I think that honestly is I think we're much closer. I do think we're at safe on a lot of the language stuff, or all of it. I don't think we're at safe on that part.
Yeah, that's the part I'm concerned about.
Robert Knudsen has been starting to tinker around. I don't know how systematic he's being. He said he could potentially write up a testing document, but I do think we need to figure out a system to get lay volunteers en masse to do the kind of manual testing that Michelle was talking about.
Because we need a bunch of people per form. We don't want to leave this to one volunteer per form. This needs to be something that is quality checked by a lot of people. And because somebody might miss something. So can I get law students who have finished with their finals and any volunteers that I know of that are just sitting around waiting for something to do?
That'd be freaking awesome.
Yeah, just
and
you don't know how excited I am to hear this. Like, you have no idea.
And get them ready and explain what's going to have to happen. And perhaps do we have a form that I can show people how to do this on, or create something?
You can do it on the TRO.
On the TRO.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. And just explain that process.
The TRO is a little weird because it's not really a form, right? With checkboxes.
That's what we're looking for.
There are 6 different checkboxes.
Yeah.
There are checkboxes. Okay. All right. My mistake.
Withdrawn. 6 of them.
Withdrawn.
So and then when we have interviews that are ready for this process or when we have portions, could that work? Portions, or do we want to wait for it to be stitched?
I think you want it to be stitched.
I think you do, because it can change everything.
Right, but you do also want to check if the individual forms are going to remain available individually. You want to check them individually.
Oh yeah. Right.
Well, and more fundamentally, I think before we get into that bugaboo right there, I think more fundamentally, the most terrible no failure bug that is likely to exist in these forms is on the PDF level. In terms of like the
text areas and things.
Text areas and
signatures.
The code blocks, which aren't going to change that much necessarily. My vote would be I would rather test that stuff longer than wait for it to be stitched together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that goes to the entire. We want to tech the. Yeah, but the PDFs are already a part of the individual forms. So by testing individual forms, you're testing those PDFs.
Sure.
I misunderstood. Sorry.
I think
so. What do I
my
need?
Understanding that the only forms not ready for that would be complaint page 2 and maybe care and custody. Like, could the rest of them be being tested right now?
I'm not sure about the affidavit. I have to review that, I think, today. Oh my God, there's so much.
If you need help with to-do list, then you can definitely tell me.
But yeah.
Affidavit isn't ready. It's not working the way we expect it to work.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I went through it today.
It is working how it should be now.
I thought we were talking about Quentin's affidavit, right?
No,
the affidavit.
Yeah, they're
okay.
No.
Yeah, no,
So
I apologize.
Kendall did a commit last night. I ran it through and it looks great.
Oh, I was thinking about page 2. That was my fault. I was thinking about page 2 isn't ready. The thing about page 1 is that you can't answer all the questions on page 1 without answering page 2. I mean, unless you have no children. But you have to do page 1 and affidavit before you go back to you have to do page 1. If you have no children, you have to do page 1, affidavit, go back to page 1.
Yeah, and I think some of this stuff is going to get resolved in the stitching process.
The only thing I wanted to say is I get what you're saying about testing the standalones, but at the same time, thinking you want the 209A out the door, you're not going to use the affidavit of care by itself without any other forms. So I think when you do your testing, once you've done this, what you're talking about, Matt, the little PDFs working, but then you want to test the whole package and not worry about the affidavit of care as a standalone yet, because you're not going to be offering that, I don't think. And that's going to be the next project that you do if you're going to do it. Affidavit of care is probably always going to be in some other package.
I think if there's any doubt, people can fill in the PDFs by hand to make sure that the fields are okay. So that's the fallback if we don't want to try an individual interview, or we don't know if we want to try an individual interview, then it will be that. But there are some that can be tried as an individual interview, and that would be great.
Yeah, that's a starting point, is to do once we can do it individually, to at least limit the amount of work that's going to have to be done at the end. And we can try and start doing that now. Where I know where the PDFs are. Where do I find, what do I present volunteers with in the sense of interviews? Where will I find something that people will be able to easily access that?
So those are going to be on people's playgrounds.
Yeah, that's what I was scared of. Okay.
But if you want what I can do, or what Matt can do, I think, Matt, you can do this. Pull them all,
So in theory, all the PDFs should be being noted in that on that web form.
Yeah.
Well, if Maeve, if you can wrangle the people, I can wrangle the forms.
I want to make sure that the forms,
So
that the PDFs actually make it onto that web form too. Because one of the things I did notice is some of them are pointing to the original source, not to the,
That's on my to-do list, Dave.
So
I saw the comment.
It's
Matt,
all breathe.
I think you can
It's all
put them
breathe.
on your playground and then provide links to the various interviews on your playground. I can show you how, and that
I'm just
way
nervous
people
of
can
scaring
test
away
them from your
volunteers.
playground. All you have to do is give them a link. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, we'll yeah, I'd love to
We'll
see
figure that out.
I
I'll
think
get the people
possible.
together.
We can try it.
Mm-hmm.
Get the people. Okay, I'm very cognizant of everyone's time. It's 7 o'clock. Does anyone have anything? It's 1 o'clock.
Don't worry
Does
about
anybody have? I'm just gonna change my computer time. Does anyone have?
On EST? What's the big problem, man? Jeez.
I watched that documentary. What's it? How to Fix a Drug Scandal. And because I've been working with you guys in Massachusetts, I was like, my town.
You peeps.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had I worked on that when I was at, so the one thing is ACLU's really good at PR, but they co-chaired that with they co-sat that with CPCS. So
it was, wow. That's crazy. Okay, so basically we don't have anything else that we need to talk about. We can talk about it on Slack. I'm gonna DM Caroline.
I have to tell you this. I'm very worried about Quentin because it's a crime in New Hampshire to cut your own hair.
Really? Holy
well, he's not in New Hampshire.
Yeah. He's in Massachusetts.
I haven't checked the Massachusetts laws.
Oh,
Is it really
dangerous?
Probably.
That's so interesting.
I saw a picture of him
Probably
with
from the Great
hair, and I was
Depression.
like, he looks so different. It's crazy.
To be clear, I think he does that always. So this is not like a.
He did say that.
But he's gotten it on
experience.
video now. It's on video, right? It's like, might want to edit that footage.
Okay, so that's it for today on the stand-up.
That's it. Yeah.
We've got the channels going. I'm going to message Caroline and Emily.
And I want to talk to you, Kendall, and you, Matt.
And maybe you want to stay on the line after this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. None of those people are me. I'm leaving.
Bye.
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 Bye.